Have you ever thought about how far dreams and determination can take a person? A young Filipino once proved this by traveling across Europe in search of knowledge and experience. That young man was Jose Rizal, whose journey helped shape his vision for our country. But before we go further into his travels, let us first take a look at the objectives of our discussion. First is to analyze and understand the impact of Jose Rizal's European travels on his intellectual development, political views, and reformist activities by examining the key events, interactions, and experiences he encountered during his time abroad. And by examining these aspects of Rizal's European travels, we can gain insight into how his experiences abroad influenced his ideology and actions, ultimately contributing to his role as a national hero and a catalyst for change in the Philippines. Moving on to the brief of Rizal's travel in Europe, Rizal left Manila for Singapore on May 3, 1882, without the knowledge of his mother, Spaniards authorities, and friars. Jose Rizal, a fourth-year student at University of Santo Tomas, was disgusted of the educational system and racial issue there. So he decided to leave UST and continue his studies in Europe instead, with the support of his older brother Pasiano. Rizal went to Singapore, Colombo, and through the Suez Canal before reaching Europe. Timeline of Rizal's travel to Europe. In 1882, Rizal left Manila to begin his journey abroad. By 1883, he had traveled to France and Spain, then later returned to Spain the same year. In 1886, Rizal continued his studies and experiences in Germany. By 1888, his journey took him to Great Britain and other countries in Europe. In 1890, Rizal moved from London to Paris. A year later, in 1891, he stayed in Belgium. And finally, in 1892, Rizal returned to the Philippines, bringing with him the knowledge and experiences from his years of travel.
In 1882, Jose Rizal made one of the most important decisions in his life. He left Manila to pursue his studies in Spain at the Universidad Central de Madrid. And to begin with, on June 15, 1882, Rizal left Marseilles, riding a train en route to Barcelona, Bordeaux, and Porto. The very next day, June 16, he arrived in Barcelona around noon, accompanied by his friend Bolle. And after a few months, on September 2, 1882, Rizal officially enrolled at the Universidad Central de Madrid. There, he studied various fields such as medical clinic, surgical clinic, legal medicine, and obstetrics. Aside from academics, Rizal also became active in social intellectual circles. He joined the Círculo Hispano-Filipino, a group of Filipino students in Madrid, where he worked alongside prominent figures like Marcelo del Pilar, Juan Luna, and Graciano Lopez Jaina. During this same period, Rizal began writing. Among his notable early works were Mi Peden Versos, which translates to the Ask Me for Verses, and Las Dudas, under the pen name Laong Laan. These pieces reflected both his longing for the Philippines and his reflections on its struggles. Now that we've seen Rizal's first year in Spain, let's move on to the following year, 1883, where he broadened his horizons even further by traveling to France and deepening his connections in Spain. In 1883, Rizal traveled to France to observe medical practices. He arrived in Paris on June 17, and during his stay that summer, from June until August 20, he spent his vacation immersing himself in the city. While in Paris, Rizal stayed in two different hotels and dedicated time to learning the French language and culture. Later that year, he returned to Madrid, where he moved on to new residences. There, he studied and learned from Mariano Katigbak about the outbreak of cholera and beriberi in Lipa, Batangas. At the same time, Rizal pursued his artistic side. He studied sculpting and painting at the Academy of Fine Arts of San Fernando. In addition, he joined the Acacia Masonic Lodge, a fraternity that stood as a counterforce against the influence of the friars in the Philippines. Beyond academics and art, Rizal remained socially and politically engaged with his fellow members of Círculo Hispano-Filipino. He gathered for a New Year's toast at a restaurant in Madrid and continued attending meetings in 1884. Finally, by November 1884, Rizal had already become involved in student demonstrations in support of Dr. Miguel Moraita, showing that, aside from being a scholar and artist, he was also emerging as a reformist leader.
Rizal's stay in Germany was marked by both his studies and meaningful encounters. On February 1, 1886, he left Paris for Germany. By February 7, he was in Heidelberg, where he attended the lectures of Dr. Otto Becker and Professor Wilhelm Quene at the University of Heidelberg. He also worked at the University Eye Hospital under Dr. Becker, where he completed his specialization in ophthalmology. During this time, he took his German studies seriously and fully immersed himself in the culture. He even joined the celebration of the 500th anniversary of the University of Heidelberg on August 6. After Heidelberg, Rizal went to Wilhelmsfeld on April 26, where he boarded with Lutheran pastor Dr. Karl Ulmer and his family. He celebrated his 25th birthday with them and deepened his understanding of German life. By June 20, he left Wilhelmsfeld and continued his travels. Rizal moved to Leipzig from August 15. He stayed longer here because Leipzig has the cheapest cost of living in Europe. He also attended lectures at the University of Leipzig, expanding his academic exposure. From Leipzig, he traveled to Dresden on October 29 and stayed until November 1. Here, he met Dr. Adolf Meyer, a naturalist from Dresden University. Rizal then went to Berlin on November 1, 1886, where he stayed until May 11, 1887. He admired Berlin's scientific atmosphere but also faced difficulties. At one point, he almost got deported for not carrying a passport. Still, his time in Berlin was remarkable. He became a member of the Chess Club of Germany on July 14, began lasting friendship with Professor Ferdinand Blumentritt on July 31, and personally met important figures such as Dr. Fyodor Jagor, Rudolf Virchow, and his son Dr. Hans Virchow. Most importantly, with the help of Maximo Viola, whom he had been with since December 11, he was able to publish Noli Me Tangere in Berlin. By 1887, Rizal started his journey back. He and Viola traveled to Vienna from May 20 to 25, 1887, staying at Hotel Metropole and visiting churches, museums, art galleries, theaters, and parks. On May 31, they visited Stuttgart and stayed at Hotel Marquardt. Along the way, Rizal admired Germany as a nation with order, obedience, and admirable morals. Eventually, Rizal and Viola parted ways. Viola went to Barcelona, while Rizal proceeded to Rome. After 5 years in Europe, Rizal finally returned to Manila in August 1887. His homecoming, however, was not peaceful. The friars reacted with anger to Noli Me Tangere, which they saw as an attack on their authority. Rizal was even interviewed by the local press as controversies around his novel grew.
In 1888, Rizal arrived in London. In May 24, 1888, Rizal arrived in England via Liverpool and proceeded to London the following day. In May 25, 1888, he settled as a lodger with the family of Charles Becket at number 37 Calcutta Crescent in Primrose Hill. So, during his stay, Rizal spent his time in London researching Philippine history at the British Museum, particularly on noting Antonio de Morga's Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas. He also contributed writings to La Solidaridad, a publication advocating for reforms in the Philippines. So moving on, in 1889, Rizal moved to Paris, where he has involved in various activities. He participated in Universal Exposition, a world's fair showcasing technological and cultural advancements. He continued writing, contributing articles to La Solidaridad, a newspaper advocating for reforms in the Philippines. And adding up to what he's been doing, he is improving his English language skills, studying and annotating Antonio de Morga's Suceso de las Islas Filipinas at the British Museum. This was a crucial historical account of the Philippines from a Filipino's perspective. He resided with the Beckett family. He spent considerable time at the British Museum conducting research. He wrote articles for La Solidaridad, a publication that championed Filipino reforms. He was involved in social activities with other people or other Filipinos exiled in London. So, when Rizal faced financial difficulties but remained committed to his writing, he worked on his second novel, El Filibusterismo, a sequel in Noli Me Tangere, which further exposed the abuses of the Spanish colonial system. So, in January 28, 1890, Rizal left Paris for Brussels due to high cost of living in Paris and the distractions of social life there that hampered his writing. So in February 1890, Rizal arrived in Brussels. He resided at a boarding house run by Jacobi's sister and developed a romance with Suzanne Jacobi. So during his stay, Rizal focused on his writing in his second novel, El Filibusterismo, and contributed articles to La Solidaridad under pseudonyms. So in July 1890, concerns over his family's situation in the Philippines and a desire to oversee their legal case prompted Rizal to travel to Madrid. So in Rizal's time in Brussels was productive. He made significant progress on his second novel and continued his advocacy for reforms in the Philippines through his writing. His stay in Brussels was also marked by a brief romance with Suzanne Jacobi. However, his concerns for his family and his country ultimately led him to Madrid.
In 1891, Mr. Rizal moved across Europe to work on his second novel, which is El Filibusterismo. In France, Rizal finished the novel but planned revisions before publishing it. However, he requested a loan from Jose Maria Basa for his travel to Hong Kong. In Belgium, Rizal returned to Brussels to finalize the manuscript and arrange for the printing of 20 chapters. He was struggling financially but received a 200-franc contribution from Valentin Vintora. El Filibusterismo was published in September 1891. Ghent, Belgium. Rizal lived modestly to save money for the publication. He sent copies of the novel to key individuals, including those in Hong Kong and the Philippines. Before leaving for Hong Kong, Rizal informed Marcelo H. Del Pilar that he would no longer write for La Solidaridad. In October, he departed for Hong Kong with boxes of El Filibusterismo and Morga. Rizal arrived in Hong Kong in November 1891. His father, brother, and brother-in-law later joined him to escape persecution. He planned a Filipino colony in North Borneo. He was supported by Juan Luna. He obtained a duplicate licentiate in medicine and wrote to Governor-General Dispuhol, advising the latter of his arrival to the Philippines to take the few things of his family. Eventually, he decided to return to the Philippines. Rizal arrived in Manila with his sister Lucia and stayed at Oriente Hotel. He traveled to several provinces and met with Governor-General Dispuhol, who rejected his North Borneo plan. On July 3, 1892, he thanked Dispuhol for lifting his sister's exile and later attended a meeting to establish La Liga Filipina. On July 6, 1892, Rizal was arrested and imprisoned in Fort Santiago for publishing anti-Catholic materials, possessing banned pamphlets advocating independence, and allegedly attacking religion. Governor General Despujol ordered his exile and Rizal was sent to the Pitan under heavy guard.